Hey, good evening, folks. Thanks for making us part of this presentation on how we're leveraging artificial intelligence at UHS. Uh, Pretty major topic these days. A lot of folks are talking about it, using it, and maybe even wondering about how it is influencing teaching and learning. So, this presentation will hopefully give you some idea of the definitions we use, some of the challenges that we have already started to address, most importantly, I think the policies that intend to um, impose some safety and some restrictions, or as I like to say, some guardrails for our staff and students and how things are used, and to ensure that data is kept safe, because that's of particular significance to all of us. And then, as well as ways that we believe that it can be used as a tool for teaching and learning. Without being abused as a tool for teaching and learning. So, a little bit about this presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about some definitions, namely the difference between just AI and generative AI, which are two different terms that are sometimes used interchangeably. The ways that our staff and our students could be using AI, some general impact on teaching and learning. And we want to pull back the curtain. I use that term. We don't want any surprises about the ways that some of the tools that UHS is already using. Um, Part of why I've tried to be a little bit more proactive on the AI front is inspired by this. This is a news clipping from the Associated Press, 1986 or 1988. I'm sorry. A bunch of math teachers, elementary teachers, were wanting to ban the use of calculators. And I think most of us would realize that we use calculators on a day-to-day basis. About 35 years later, there was the chat about we should ban ChatGPT or any of the other AI bots. And we understand that, 35 years after, or almost 40 years after 1988, we're not banning calculators. They're here to stay, and they have not made our students less of a math student. It's just changed how we teach math. The other part of this that I think is important is that there is a point in time where we do say it's okay to shut things like calculators and chatbots off so that students can think, and we're treating it very much the same way. Um, and there are reasons why AI doesn't work. It's a funny little video. Just give me a second to hit play.
Driverless cars are driving some people crazy in San Francisco. Their horns have been heard honking all night as they try to park themselves. Yeah, video shows the Waymo cars honking away as they come into a parking lot. Nearby residents say it is happening throughout the evening. In fact, it's happening every night. One woman has even been capturing the moments on a live stream.
When they all come back at once, they get into a traffic jam and they start honking at each other. It's so silly to think about, like robots getting into traffic jams, but here we are.
I could not be more cranky today. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been woken up more times overnight than I have combined over 20 years.
That would drive me nuts too. Waymo says that the cars are made to blast their horns when they get too close to one another, but they did not anticipate that it would happen so often in their very own parking lots. The company says that they have updated the software to cut down on the noise.
So I guess it's my point is that AI is not perfect. There are a lot of ways where it's not necessarily working out so well. And our goal is to try and navigate it well. So AI, just as a definition, is the use of any computer system to simulate human processes, such as interpreting or generating language. And we've been using AI in a lot of different ways without necessarily even knowing it. We'll talk about some of those. So anytime a computer system is performing a human task, it's artificial intelligence. A calculator is a very basic form of AI. AI can process language, it can make decisions, it can recognize patterns, it can interact with the environment. My car has a backup camera that beeps if you get too close to the curb. It's intended to carry out tasks, some more complex than others, with little or no human intervention. Generative AI takes AI to another level. Generative AI is when AI is replicating a human a human function to create something new. So it'll learn from data and then use that to generate something new. And this is where your GPTs or things that you see that are generated by a computer are different than just like using a backup camera, which might be just one way. We see that students or adults in the world are using AI to generate text. They're using it to generate images. They're using it to generate code. There's ways you can use AI to generate sounds. And there are a lot of different sites out there that are and companies that are functioning in that way. Some of the terms that we use, and large language model is a term. We're not going to get too much into the technical, but these are those systems like ChatGPT. Gemini is Google's. Claude is one written by a company called Anthropic that can create human text based on patterns. So large language. It can do things in a lot of different languages. We'll use the word prompt a lot, and that's how is AI being guided? How are we asking AI to do something? And the chatbots are the different tools. A term that did make its appearance in our student handbook this year is the word deepfake. And this became a problem last year in a school district down in New Jersey, another one in Pennsylvania, where students, middle school students, so we're talking, I think, 7th and 8th graders, created images that looked real but were altered, and they were of adults in the building. They made some of these images about their teachers, and they were obscene or in vulgar in many ways. And those are in our handbook now. We have not, knock on wood, dealt with a deepfake situation yet at UHS. But if a student is using, taking a picture of somebody while they're in the classroom, or in a hallway or on the bus, and then using that to create something fake with that person's imagery on it, that's actually a pretty major infraction as far as we're concerned. We use words like misinformation and disinformation. Not everything that comes from AI is perfect. There's a term in the chatbot world that's called hallucination. This is when AI makes something up. If you ask AI something and it doesn't know the answer, it might just make something up or respond with the wrong dates. Sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's not. A couple of the AI bots will say that they're using data that is only up to April of last year in terms of its accuracy. So anything that happened between April and now may not be considered. So it could get wrong info. And then we are working on bias, and I'll talk a little bit more about bias in a few minutes. So here are some examples of AI, things that you see in every single day. When you type in something into your search bar and it brings something up, that algorithm is AI. If you use a smart assistant, or you ask your Amazon product to tell you what the weather is, social media feeds and smart cars, navigation apps, those are all forms of AI. And navigation app is the one that I kind of get a kick out of, because we used to have to sit and give physical directions, and where I grew up, it was sometimes complicated. You say, well, you got to count the number of lights, or you got to count the number of street corners, and when you get past the third road, it might be a do not enter sign. And or as my dad used to say, at the bear that looks like a rock, take a right, and then at the rock that looks like a bear, take a left. That's all changed with navigation apps. So what we're talking about in terms of policy is AI literacy. AI literacy is giving adults and students the opportunity to generate responses. How can AI help work with students to give them some ownership over learning? How can we act in an informed way? That's why we're all here. That's why you're watching this video. It's avoiding temptations to just shut things down. A couple of weeks ago, I gave a presentation to a group from at our state association, and one of the schools had sent 4 people, and they weren't able to get on any of the sites. And that's dangerous, because when we don't go into them properly, and we don't have things that are unblocked or contracted with properly, people tend to go about things in maybe less than scrupulous ways. And then the last part is really important. It's about assessing safety, privacy, and what is best for the right task, and what is in line with policy, so that it's not just the Wild West. again, how do we determine what's best given the guardrails that are imposed by people who understand the technology and its potential consequences? So with AI, we're using it to break down complex problems, analyze critical information, and identify patterns. And I'm going to share a couple of examples of this as we go along. Something that I think is important. We have a policy, and when school committees vote in a policy, policy is different than procedure. Policy is basically the law that the school board, or the school committee in our case, says that we have to follow in operationalizing and making procedures out of any of those laws. So the policy requires that there's data privacy. The policy requires that if a teacher is using something that was AI generated for an assessment, that it's disclosed. The policy requires that we cite properly. So if students are being asked to, or tasked with using something and it requires AI, that we've taught them proper citation. And it's encouraged to be used for being more efficient or more accurate. So we're asking our staff to model it for student use and to incorporate practically and for practicality, not just to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. With our teachers, we've talked about automation and taking factors into steps factoring in steps that learners can take to get better and faster. And I'm going to go into a couple of the sites and sort of live show how that works, to allow for maybe a different kind of brainstorming or discourse than we had before. Again, without giving the answers. And when I first got to Uxbridge 10 years ago, I can't believe I just said that. I'm in my 10th year. So we were in the midst of still being sort of novice users of the iPad. And I got a sense from the teachers that there wasn't necessarily a comfort level with all of the different tools of the iPad. And I remember distinctly giving people the permission, as with any technology, time to use it and time to unplug. If you go into our engineering shop and see how our students are working there are times when students are doing measurements and laying things out on a computer, and there are times where they have to use the actual tools in their hands. And that's how we use technology in writing. Sometimes it's good to brainstorm with something on a screen, and sometimes it's good to brainstorm things on a whiteboard or by opening up a good old-fashioned blue book. So these are the three sort of main ways you will see us showing off AI use today: productivity, information learning, and perhaps being more creative with some creation of or exploration, brainstorming, that sort of thing. What's important that you see here is that adults, students alike, we've asked our staff to really pick one. We've been really focusing on productivity and efficiency, operational efficiency, not necessarily how we're becoming more creative with teaching and learning, because you can't possibly do everything at once. So even with students, if you're using AI to become better at managing tasks or being more efficient with certain things, that's okay. It's trying to avoid doing everything at once. We have used some tutoring tools that have provided personalized explanations. We have a program I'm going to demonstrate in a minute that we use for career exploration. And it provides the students with background that's individualized to each student. What's also cool about that particular site is it also gives us some composite data so we can know how to drive some of our curricular decisions. AI is not doing the work for the students. It can give students ideas for projects. It can give students ideas for how to practice, but it shouldn't be doing the work for them. We are going to show a little bit about how we've used, or I'm going to show a little bit about how we use it for brainstorming in just a minute. So again, for students, boosting their learning, being more efficient, being more creative. Most of what you're going to see from us tonight is in this sort of middle category of being efficient. When I do these presentations for other administrators and educators, I talk about it in terms of the ABCs: the about AI, the benefits of AI, and of course the concerns. The ones I'd like to focus on here: data security and privacy, less of an issue for families to worry about through the school, because our tech team helps us vet and ensure that data privacy agreements are on file and followed by any group we work with. Misinformation, academic dishonesty — I must really like misinformation because I have it on there twice — and bias are really the big three. Misinformation means downloading something that you see online and just taking it as gospel and not checking your work. Academic dishonesty means plagiarism. Quite simply, you ask AI a question, it writes the essay, you hand it in as your own. That's no different than copying something word for word out of Google or a website, or not citing something properly, and we've spent some time on that. And bias really comes down to pulling things out that maybe don't have balanced perspectives. And when we're trying to address that, sometimes even the bots have bias. The example I use, and I sometimes share the article as part of these presentations. There was a story last year of a young woman from MIT. She was Asian American. She took a headshot in her dorm, uploaded it to a site, said, "Please make this a more professional looking headshot for my LinkedIn profile." And it made her Caucasian and blue-eyed. That's bias. I mean, that's about as obvious a bias as one can possibly consider. So on to some specific chatbots, and I am going to just pop out of this presentation for a second, and I'm going to show you 3 different chatbots that we use. I'm going to show 2 of them. I deliberately do not show ChatGPT. It's not something I really use because of the data privacy challenges that it has. The first one I'm going to demonstrate, and hopefully you are going to see it in a second, is Gemini. Gemini is Google's chatbot, and when Gemini, when somebody asks something in Gemini, it does connect to the student's Google Drive, which can be helpful. So I'm going to just generate a prompt, or let's say there was an essay question that a teacher had given somebody, and I have it over here, and it says, if I were a teacher, write me a multiple choice question about Frost Road Not Taken, and have it be a question that asks about author's purpose. If I'm a teacher, it gives me the question. If I were a student, I would then be able to say, if I were a student, say, I was given a prompt about Robert Frost's Road Not Taken. I need to write an analytic essay. What is a thesis statement that could start me? And could you help me brainstorm some different analysis points for my essay? It now gives some things about thematic analysis, the nature of choice, the illusion of free will, but it doesn't give the answer. If I then say, write me a paragraph about, I just copy this and paste it in, and I write this paragraph and I copy it and paste it, this first part is fine. It's given me some analysis of things I could talk about as a student. It's given me some things about structure. It tells me what I can do that goes beyond a superficial reading. If I copy and paste this paragraph, that's cheating. There's the line. There's the explanation for students. We would encourage this because, if the student has a mom or dad at home that wants to look through a question about Robert Frost's poem about making choices, they could realistically look at this, and it would be this could be something that 2 people would discuss. If we go back here, we say, I am not certain what you mean by poetic devices. The student can get definitions. It says I'm designed solely to process and generate text. So if I say, what is poetic devices mean, or what does poetic devices mean? It gives some examples. It doesn't give you the example in the text. If I say, write me about poetic devices in Robert Frost's poem, it now goes into a little more detail. We start talking about regular meter and rhyme scheme and alliteration, and then gives you a line. This is where we start venturing towards someplace we shouldn't go. The good news is we do have tools that'll help our teachers disaggregate, but this just gives you sort of one example of how AI can be used by a generative site to create things. What is great about Gemini is if you look down the bottom, it gives the sources. And when you click on the source, it will actually redirect you to the source of where some of this information came from. And that gives us an opportunity to tell the students how to cite things properly. Claude, which is a site I tend to use a little bit more frequently. Claude is much like ChatGPT, is a site that can examine PDFs. It can read PDFs. It can look at some different documents. So if I were to be, say, in Uxbridge and just share this tab, and I were to go to like I'll show you, this is this is our Uxbridge school profile. It's on the DOE's website. And if I were to go to, say, our assessment tab, and I were to want to print this report, I could save it as a PDF to my desktop, and I could call it MCAS tests. And what I could do in Claude is, can you provide me with a summary of this data? And when I attach it to Claude, it will read that PDF and it will provide me with a summary, and it tells you where the strong performance is, the low performance is. So if a student does this, scans his or her, lab report and asks it to disaggregate some of the data, or asks it to assist with disaggregating the data, but doesn't actually write the report, you're in a place where a student's becoming more efficient. Not at all unlike a calculator. I gotta switch back to the other tab. Sorry. So when I type into Claude, can you provide me with a summary of this data? And I hit the PDF, it then gives me the key findings really quickly. It'll then ask, would you like me to dive deeper and say, can you give me 3 action steps for areas for improvement? Based on the data, here are 3 action steps. If I copy and paste these as action steps, and I don't read through them and I don't look through them, shame on me. This is where, for me, I want to make sure that I'm then looking at this and not just copying and pasting. Is this a step we're going to take? Absolutely. Consider additional math supports periods or after-school tutoring. Is that something I would just copy and paste? Not if I haven't looked through how we're actually gonna do that. And how are we gonna focus? I might not take focus on moving students from partially meeting to meeting. I might actually give something more specific than that. So when we look at something like Claude, yes, it's great that it can use a PDF, but just saying PDF and then copying and pasting without then going through what you may want these statements to actually say is pretty important. I'm going to avoid ChatGPT for a couple of reasons. One, they're not very friendly with data privacy, and Gemini and Claude are a little bit more friendly. The other 4 tools that I wanted to share um, are four that we can actually use in class. School AI, Brisk, are really teacher centered. But I'm going to show something using Brisk in just a moment that will help families understand how teachers can then look and detect whether something is made by AI. So School AI and Brisk both have classroom interface where students can actually interact with materials that are AI generated that make things very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Unique, personalized to each student. Um, and School AI being one of the sites that is very data friendly, and is can be student friendly if there are some things that they need. Because they're very teacher centric, I'm not going to get into it too much on the family side, but I am going to show a couple of tools that Brisk uses. A couple of weeks ago, some of you may remember getting a letter from me about the athletic reconfiguration. This is the letter. This is the letter. It was copied and pasted into Parent Square. This is legitimately the entire letter. You'll see there's this little icon down here that I have installed on my computer, and that icon is reflective of something called Brisk. Well, when a teacher gets a document shared with him or her by a student, they can use Brisk to do something called this. You'll see that when our teachers open this up, this is not something parents would see. There's a tool here that says inspect writing. There's also a tool here that says give feedback, but we're going to focus on inspect writing. When I hit inspect writing, it's actually going to go through and show the keystrokes that I used, what I pasted where, when I paused, how long it took for me to write this, and maybe a couple of other things that I pulled in from other places. So you see, I pasted in the Google Meet information. This first paragraph I had written in my email, so I pasted it somewhere else. Then it has this button up here that a teacher can push, and it will say, was this AI writing? And it says that this essay or this letter was unlikely AI writing. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. It bases the algorithm based on what it can scan from around the internet and how many large chunks of paste there are. The other thing that Brisk can be used for, and this is by teachers, is it can give feedback. So again, if we come back over here and a teacher is giving feedback on a student, they could upload a rubric, they could give targeted feedback, and I'm going to choose targeted feedback. And I would say provide feedback on grammar, sentence structure, supporting details. And we'll say as if this were written by a ninth grader. I don't have the rubric. And when I hit Brisk it, it's going to read this and it's going to provide feedback. So this feedback I could have then used to restructure the essay. And this is something that teachers can do that would have taken me a lot longer as an educator. So this is where we talk about operational efficiencies. This says, how could I rephrase this to encourage participation? I could rewrite that sentence, or I could just cancel the comment. If I get this back, I could say, could I provide a specific example? I'm going to cancel the comment. So this is how something like Brisk works really well. There's also ways that our teachers, and I'm going to show something in just a moment, that teachers, let's say they were working on, give me 1 second to just pull up a site here. If our teachers were, stop sharing here for a second, and then I'm gonna share a different tab. Give me 1 second. Oops, we don't want that. Just give me a quick second to share a different tab. Hopefully this is still This doesn't seem to want to. I'm frozen here for a second. Sorry, folks. Just give me a quick second to unfreeze. I don't know what's going on here. I might have too many tabs open. In fact, that's, I think, exactly what's going on. I might have to come back to that in a second. But if we were to, why is this doing this? I'm really sorry. Everything just sort of, I went too fast and everything just sort of cracked. Give me 1 second. I don't want to troubleshoot. I want to screen share. Okay, here we go. With respect to, all right, there we go. So if I were a teacher and I wanted to use, these sites, Brisk can also create presentations. It can create articles. It can create quizzes. It can do a lot of different things. The other two sites that I do want to highlight are these two. And first one that's here is something called Career Scoops. We have given Career Scoops assessments to all of our seniors who are in internships. And we have given our Career Scoops information surveys to some of our 9th graders. And what Career Scoops does is it has our students take an assessment that is extremely personalized, that gauges their interest, gauges their skills, and then provides them with career feedback and career chats with people in the field. And it provides career guidance and aligns recommendations. So what we get for each student is a personalized career assessment, and we get insight reports that come back to the school. And what we have been able to find with our Career Scoops work is that we have some disconnects from what the students are interested in and maybe some of the skills we've been emphasizing. So our students are actually using Career Scoops to help generate some of their career readiness with counselors. I'm not going to run through the whole platform, but basically what the students do is they get personalized insight about themselves with each question of the assessment that they take because it's personalized. The other site, and this is something we are going to give access to families to in just a couple of weeks, is something called CGN. Our students do not yet have access to it. I'm going to play this quick video about CGN, which is actually going to be changing its name from CGN to, I believe, EGN, which is Extended Guidance Network. And this is going to provide AI-based guidance counseling support for all our families 24/7. So just take a listen, and I'll be back in a moment to share a little bit more about CGN.
Parents, planning for a student's life after high school has never been harder. Kids are flat out overwhelmed with homework, activities, and distractions like social media. And let's face it, parenting communication was never easy to begin with. The college process is complicated and more expensive than ever, and career pathways are even more complex. Most parents report they are flying without instruments as they navigate decisions amid a national discussion about the value of college. Amid a deluge of unvetted information, parents are hungry for support and trusted all-in-one place navigation, a source that is accessible on nights, weekends, and vacations. CGN is leveraging the power of AI to fill the void. We have developed a support system that is trustworthy, accurate, and trained by experts. Think of it as Enhanced Expert AI. The first component of CGN's 3-part solution is Ava, our AI counseling assistant. The best AI chatbots have the best training from the best data. Better, more accurate inputs will yield more satisfying outputs for users. Ava is trained by more than 300 top experts on over 50 critical topics, with more being added every month to provide personalized, comprehensive career and college guidance. Ava delivers answers you can rely on, coming from experts you can trust. No misinformation or hallucinations, no questionable sources. And it serves up CGN videos and resources to enhance your understanding.
What is worse than graduating with significant debt is not graduating with significant debt. So we have to make sure we graduate as well.
AI experts are also the combination that powers the second part of our solution, your personalized roadmap or project plan to college and career decisions. You tell us a little bit about yourself and your goals and interests, and we assemble time-driven checklists and detailed project plans tailored specifically to your needs.
The first question I have to ask myself is, what do I want my college experience to be like?
There's really 5 traits that colleges want to know about students.
The majority of students who apply to an institution like mine, they're qualified. Like, they are qualified.
Why would we ever imagine that somehow magically every single kid is ready for college at age 18? Right? Like, that makes no sense.
Meeting families where they are, Ava, your personalized roadmap, and our videos are all available in multiple languages. Our tagline is experts for everyone, all in one place, and we believe it. We also provide regular alerts via email or text so you never miss a deadline or date. Access to experts is no longer just for families who can afford expensive private counselors. CGN levels the playing field for all families with the third part of our offering, live programming with top expert interviews coming right into your home to give you tips and tricks and answer your questions. Traditional software systems like Naviance and Score focus on the mechanics behind the application and tailor their approach to students. CGN complements school software systems by supporting students and families through the entire college and career process with top expert guidance. CGN, the total support system, ensuring better post-secondary decisions for all students. To learn more, reach out to us at ava@collegeguidancenetwork.com.
So we're pretty excited about partnering with CGN, and I know they're going to be changing their branding in a couple of weeks. I'm personally pretty excited about working with them. I know Mr. Bozan, our director of technology, and I had a chance to meet with them. They're interviewing Mr. Mora tomorrow. They've met with our school counselors. We are eventually going to roll that out to students. But the AI prompt there sort of has those built-in reminder systems and will give each student a personalized roadmap. So again, much like the interaction that they have with Career Scoops, the interaction they have on the CGN site, or that you have as parents, guardians, and caregivers with CGN, is going to be uniquely tailored to each individual student's experience, because there is no one perfect path for life after high school, and everybody requires a different kind of support. Moving on, and I could spend a lot of time on each of these sites and showing how they work. We want to make sure that your information is always protected when using AI tools, which is why I didn't spend time on ChatGPT. Which is why we don't use certain sites. There's another site out there that counselors had been using, not necessarily in Uxbridge, but we found out that the data that was being mined there was being sold to industry. And so I asked if any of our counselors were using it. They were not for any of the college application processes. But some of my colleagues did have people using it, and that's, again, out of bounds. We want people to understand how AI makes decisions and who's responsible. As I showed in that example about the Robert Frost poem, you're responsible for what you put into it. You're responsible for what you take out of it. And if students are using things to help prime the pump, like using it like they have a person at home to have a conversation with, and they're using that to make good decisions about their education or to enhance their education, awesome. But if they're not, and they use it to do the work for them, that's where the line gets crossed. The other part of what is cheating, and I share this, sorry, I had that link to CGN. That video flyover link is that you just saw. If you typed it, it's all right there, that video we just watched together. So again, we talk about citation. My colleague Matt Miller, who's a technology specialist in the Midwest, put together this continuum. And this is what we are going to share with the students pretty directly. Over on the far left, if you write something on your own, no help from AI, awesome. That's sort of what we all aspire to. It's what happens on major tests. It's what happens, when you're trying to put something together. When you go off to work, you may put together a memorandum or a note for your boss or a project that is all your own material. Then there's far right. You take somebody else's stuff, you scrub off the name, you put your name on it. Unacceptable. That's in the red. Everything else is in yellow. And everything that's in yellow is a caution flag, because there is a way where those things are quickly moved from acceptable to not. Asking AI to give you feedback on a rough draft. I remember when spell checking and grammar checking came out, and it was, well, how are students going to learn proper grammar if the grammar check does it for them? Now, I don't know anybody who doesn't use spell check or grammar check. Asking AI for feedback, uploading it into a site and saying, I don't know if my thesis is any good. I don't know if my details are any good. I don't know if I solved all these problems correctly. Can you give me a fact checker and show me where I made my mistake? Those things are okay. Again, it's no different than calling a friend and asking for help with your homework. Asking AI to help with writing a list of works cited and then checking it against a works cited guide to make sure your bibliography is okay. Again, that's fine. Simply pasting it and saying, yeah, I assume this is fine, is probably not, especially if the information doesn't spit out accurately. So we want to focus again for our students. We're going to focus an awful lot on these yellows. And that's where I think our teachers are a little concerned. And for some moments, yes, the green over here, having people write the paper without any help and just opening up a blue book and using pen and pencil, sometimes that's okay. So what we talk about is what's okay and what's out of bounds. I've shared some examples of that. Brainstorming, feedback, research, maybe guidance in writing a letter. You may have seen there was a tab on the left of my Gemini where, we had a student a staff member who's had a child pass away. I was looking for some help in writing that letter because it's not something I really knew how to address properly, and I wanted to be compassionate. Checking your work, that's okay. But on the right, take one thing and turn it into another, or use something AI written as your own work. You're asked to read a chapter of a book, and you say, AI, hey, summarize for me the chapter of the book. You're working on a Spanish assignment, you say, AI, just translate this for me. That's out of bounds. That's beyond the scope of what we want people to be doing. So in sum, we are trying to make sure that people understand AI's here. There are nuances. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot that we're learning as we move along. And we want students to, if they're thinking about using AI as a tool, to ask rather than just do. This is not a situation where we would hope people would be saying, well, let's ask for forgiveness, not permission. There's the well-documented case. I was just interviewed about this for Ed Week magazine. The case that came out of Hingham, where they didn't have a policy. The teacher hadn't explicitly said, don't use AI. The student did use AI to create an outline and then wrote his own paper, at least as the media has pitched the story. And now the student is, was accused of plagiarism or was accused of academic dishonesty. We would say if the teacher, if a student is not sure whether the teacher is okay with him or her using AI to create an outline or to generate a list of sources, just ask. Or show this teacher, this is what I used AI for. Is this an appropriate use? And that self-advocacy is really important because it'll help them learn that line for when they go off to work and this is around them and there isn't a teacher or a counselor or a school principal or assistant principal or a technology maven to sit there and say, this is what's in play and what's not. We're excited. There's some trepidation, but there's also a lot of opportunity, and I think that's where Uxbridge High School is positioned pretty well. We've done some things really well. The policy that we have is strong, the procedure that we have is strong, and the 3 or 4 tools that we're entrusting to our staff are working out so far pretty well for us. So we hope this was helpful. We'll be continuing to open up questions to folks and inviting them in if they have questions, both about just general tech use and AI. So thanks for tuning in, and hope this was helpful. Have a good rest of your evening.